This was like 2 years ago, in the fall season. I had recently turned 18 and my friend was 19 at the time. I had not yet taken my driver's license yet. In my country, you have to be 18 before being able to take the license. At the time, I had a moped to transport myself from and to schoolwork. So me and my friend were planning on hanging out that day after school. When the time came, we went off. We lived in a small town, so the roads were small and the max speed was between 40-50 kilometers per hour. Nothing was out of the ordinary until a white Volvo was driving very close to us all of a sudden. I yelled to my friend to look behind us carefully, so we didn't lose balance. And she could see that it was a woman holding up her phone, and I could see her holding something in the side mirror. By the way, we used helmets that were approved, and my moped was approved to carry 2 persons. So I speeded up a little and she was still keeping up with us. Mind that she was swirling a bit since she was paying attention to her phone more than her car. I realized that we weren't getting away from her. I let go of the gas and the speed minimized and held a steady speed. She almost rammed into us, but surprisingly, she found the brake and slowly minimized her speed, but was still close as hell. Our turn came and we had to stop because of oncoming traffic, and she was so close. I could still see her holding up her phone. She was obviously recording us, so I flipped her off. When we did take the turn, I speeded up to get away from her, but she gassed her car, not caring about oncoming traffic, and they honked at her. My friend was laughing. I was laughing because even though she's an idiot and chasing us, it was quite hilarious because we did nothing wrong. We had to make another turn, and she slowed down a bit, still behind us, and we clearly saw, because we slowed way down making the turn, that she held her phone up and pressed it against the passenger window. We both flipped her off. Again, funny thing was that she didn't see where she was going, so her car swayed yet again. Dumb Karen! What I think she was trying to record was my friend, because the helmet she had on was a bicycle helmet. However, as I previously mentioned, it is approved for using while sitting on a moped. It's not a normal bicycle helmet. It's more thick and covers the whole head, and not just the upper head, but down by the ears level. Approved. I read the authorities' site for vehicles. That's how I know it was approved, although it's not Karen's problem. Never seen her after that, but we did see a car a lot like hers driving around my neighborhood a while later. She couldn't find my moped either because I always parked it behind our house in the backyard. So, some backstory first. I work at a large grocery store chain. As someone who stocks groceries, replaces items that have been left or returned throughout the day, and various other chores around the store. It's a pretty small store, so most of the employees can do almost all of the tasks. So this particular night I was putting away a cart of items that customers decided they didn't want, overstock, or were damaged. There was a separate area where damaged items went, obviously. Now, I should preface this with the fact that I'm not completely deaf. I can faintly hear things like slamming doors, loud phones, ringtones, and some things like that. Though I cannot hear voices at all, even loud yelling. While I am deaf, I know sign language, have a large pin and lanyard that I wear that informs people that I am in fact deaf. In addition to this, I have a small notebook that has a variety of pre-written responses to questions, sort of like flashcards. Though communication is difficult sometimes, I try my best to make things work, and I am very prepared. Most people are understanding, work with me, and we get through the conversation. Some kind people even sign with me. That always makes me smile. I am pretty young and don't look like the typical hearing-impaired person, so when people sometimes get a little grumpy because I don't respond right away, they're very apologetic. Not this time. This is where the story gets good. So I'm mulling along one evening and decided to get an early start on the overstock from the day, which was filling a shopping cart to the max. Since this was earlier than I normally began, there were more people still in the store as opposed to when I usually started. No big deal, I started anyway. About half a shopping cart later, I'm in the paper towels section when I feel someone roughly poke me in the shoulder. I jump and turn around, startled to see this lady. She's taller than me, and I'm no slouch. I'm 6 feet tall, or 72 inches. She is very thin, probably mid-50s, and has frizzy blonde hair. This back in September of 2020, and of course she doesn't have a mask on. She begins to what I assume was yelling, judging by the aggressive look on her face. I begin to point to my lanyard and ears, trying to communicate that I can't hear her. According to the nice customer, who I will introduce in a moment, she was saying things like, "I'm talking to you. I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes." She then takes a step forward and grabs my lanyard, yanking it violently, and it gets unsnapped from around my neck. She throws it to the ground. At this point, I'm very nervous and beginning to panic. I try to actually say I can't hear, but I'm not sure how it came out as I've never actually heard my own voice. My significant other says it sounds very cute, however. It's at this point the nice customer enters the picture. I see him round the corner. A 30-something-year-old man, I assume, rounds the aisle and walks up to the crazy Karen, asking what the problem was. This is all what he wrote down for me, saying what he said after the incident. The nice customer looks over to me, and I frantically point to the pin on my mask and grab my notebook and scribble down, "I'm deaf, and I don't know why she's yelling at me." The customer turns to Karen, and they exchange some words. Things like, "Can't you see he's deaf? Why are you yelling at a kid like that?" And responses like, "He's not deaf, he's just ignoring me because he's a lazy piece of trash." This goes on for a few minutes, and I finally begin to cry, as this has caused a scene with people starting to surround us. It finally attracted the attention of my two managers, the store manager and the district manager. The store manager walks up to me while the district manager walks to the customer and the Karen, who have now really started shouting at each other. The store manager nose sign and asks me if I'm all right. I say I am and wipe the tears from my face and grab my lanyard from the ground. My manager tells me to grab my things and wait for her in the employee break room. About 15 minutes later, the managers walked in with a police officer. The Karen had been arrested. The store manager explained to me in sign language that Karen had been arrested for third-degree assault and the officer needed a written statement and asked if I wanted to press charges. I happily say yes and give my statement. The nice customer stuck around, and I wrote him a thank you note. The store manager also gave him a gift card for being a great citizen. That was by far the worst experience I've ever had with a customer, but I'm thankful that awesome people like the nice customer and my two managers exist. Also, the Karen got sentenced to a few months in jail, probation, and was fined a hefty amount, and I honestly hope it destroys her life. For a bit of context, I was born with only 7 months in the womb, instead of 9, that said, "It appears the right side of my body didn't form in a fully correct way. It's not that I'm deformed and don't even look human. I just have some weird characteristics in my right side of the body, like a small birthmark. One of my fingers in the right hand always looks jammed, and the most noticeable, my right eye is a bit smaller than the other and has a tiny deformity in the cornea. That being said, my right eye sometimes goes a bit to the right when I get too concentrated or too distracted, and I cannot control it. It just happens randomly and stops randomly. And I've been told that when I'm on moving vehicles, my eye seems to move alongside it. Like when it jumps or trembles, my eye does too. But I've talked about this to many medics and doctors, and they've all told me the same. No surgery can fix it, and an eye patch would only get my eyesight worse. I have glasses, by the way, like I cannot see, and by that I mean that I sometimes cannot read big letters on the other side of the road. So, having said that, let's move to the story. Here where I live, when you reach middle high school, it's the same here, secondary school. It's just basic and advanced orientated. You no longer have physical education classes at school, but on a club paid by the school, so to move there, I used the bus. The ride there that day was quite peaceful. Just one whining baby, but that's not a big deal. But oh, the ride home, that was not. After 15 minutes waiting in the sun, the bus finally arrived, and I hopped in, paid for my ride, and sat down. Just a few stops later, enter the entitled mother and kid of this story. So I was sitting at almost the back of the bus, and this lady who looked like she was around her late 40s and this kid who looked to be in his 12 or 13 years walked to the back. The entitled mother made a loud throat-clearing noise, but I was not moving. There literally were seats next to her. It's just that they were the one-passenger seats on the right side of the bus. Naturally, none of us moved. She just huffed and sat down. The kid with her didn't sit down and just went standing until the woman that was sitting next to me left, so he asked if he could sit there and I moved to let him pass. Now, this gave him a good look of my right eye, since he was next to it. At first he didn't seem to notice, but then, oh gosh, he just stares at me for a full 10 minutes with a "this is so wrong" kind of face, then moves from the seat and up to his mom. He didn't even whisper. Entitled kid, "Mom, did you see that girl's eye? It's weird. Is she disabled or something?" I pretended not to hear since I didn't want any trouble, but then this woman walked up to me. Entitled Mother, "Excuse me, may I see your eye for a moment?" I was sure of what she was doing, but my stupid self decided to look at her anyway, and there she saw my eye. Oh gosh, disgusting. Would you mind not doing that so close to my baby? Doing what now? It's moving your eye like that. It's rude. Stop it. No, I can't. I would if I could. Now, this isn't a lie. I would stop it if I could control it. You brat! Stop lying! You kids these days are so uneducated. Now, the lady's yelling actually made the driver move to a stop and, well, stop and walk up to us. Driver, what seems to be the problem here? This brat is scaring my baby. Just look at her moving her eye like that. You should remove her from this bus. Now, I didn't fully hear the entire conversation since the driver made her walk away from me to talk, but after almost 15 minutes of her yelling, kicking, screaming, and pointing in my direction, she just grabbed her kid's hand and stormed out of the bus, cursing at the driver for kicking her off the bus. The driver just continued without a word. Hey guys, this one is about my father-in-law. So, a bit of info first. Me, 25 female, and my husband, 26 male, have been together almost 5 years now and married for 4. When we first met, we were both in the Army, and due to my job and horrible unit, bosses for civilians, I had no time off. I worked every day Monday through Friday. So when planning our wedding, I got a single day off 7 weeks in advance. One day, we had 1 day for the perfect wedding, aka backyard and homemade food. So on to the story. My husband had invited his dad, brother, friends, first sergeant boss, and his family to come, while for me it was just coworkers and my grandfather. So I am in a side room putting on a second-hand wedding dress I got at Goodwill when there's a knock on the bedroom door. In stepped entitled Father-in-law. "You look beautiful, daughter. Can't believe my son managed to land such a beauty." Me, thanks. I am still changing, so can you leave? Oh, come now, we're family. Besides, I bet you'll look amazing. I was getting really uncomfortable. Look, why not go talk to your son? He's really happy you're here. All right, but when you get tired of him, let me know. And he winked. Gross. My friend screamed, "Okay! Get out!" She stopped lacing the back and shut the door on him, then resumed working me into the very tight dress. The next part is from what my husband said, so it won't be word for word, guys. "Amazing, Grandpa. Your dad is making my daughter uncomfortable. Yes, guys, he raised us, so he always called us daughters." My husband, "How bad?" "I don't like drama, but it's bad. I'll take care of it. I know my dad, and this is pretty normal." My husband went over to my brother-in-law and started making a plan to make their dad shut up if this kept up. So the ceremony started, and the entitled father-in-law was still there giving winks and trying to catch my eye. But honestly, I was too focused on my husband at the time. It was magical even if we messed up a bit in the ceremony, but it was fun. Then came the toast. The entitled father-in-law messed up. P.S. We did the toast right after cutting the cake. "To my new daughter-in-law, let me know when my son messes up, 'cause you're too cute to cry." my brother-in-law shouts. "Shut up!" And he shoves the cake right into his face. Everyone laughed. Then my husband walked over as father-in-law tried to wipe it off, only to get a second piece to the face. I was laughing so hard as it started a full cake war. The day was saved by my husband and brother-in-law. Of course, that man was not invited to any more gatherings with me, but he did constantly invite me to his. To this day, he creeps me out.